The ancient and vast Muslim world is divided into two branches within Islam that have given much to talk about, but of which very little is known: Sunni and Shia. This is not just any division, but the history of the Islamic world has been marked by this duality that has generated strong conflicts between Sunnis and Shiites, translated to this day even into serious military, humanitarian, and geopolitical problems. This division that we see in Islam today has a very ancient historical past, dating back to its very death. Muhammad, known in Spanish as Mahoma, and considered by Muslims as the last of the prophets and who initiated his religion. Today, in the new encyclopedia, we will return to the first century of Islamic history, to the problem of Muhammad's succession, and we will review the events that divided Islam into several branches until this day. This is Reynaldo Carrillo speaking, and I invite you to follow us on our Instagram account called The New Encyclopedia. Islam began to consolidate after the Prophet Muhammad managed to unify the tribes of the Arabian Peninsula and conquer large geographical areas under a new religious preaching. After this was accomplished, Muhammad died in the year 632 at the age of 63 in the city of Medina in present-day Saudi Arabia. His death would create a great void in Islam, and everyone wondered who should be Muhammad's successor and the new leader of the Muslim community. The division among his followers would begin to manifest itself almost immediately. The day after the Prophet's death, Muhammad's two sons died at a very early age, which meant that the Prophet left no natural heir to lead Islam. Hints in the Quran, various indices, and according to Muhammad's express wish. According to some historians of the time, they indicated that his heir should be Ali ibn Abi Talib, known only as Ali, who was his cousin on his father's side and also his son-in-law. However, following the consultative system established by Muhammad himself, it was decided to hold a meeting the day after the Prophet's death. The meeting in history is named Saqifa, as the meeting was held in the Saqifa, or courtyard of the Banu Sa'ira clan in Medina. The native leaders of the city of Medina attended the place with the purpose of electing the new supreme leader of the Muslim community. Upon learning of the important meeting, Abu Bakr and Umar ibn al-Khattab, both prominent and loyal companions of Muhammad, who were certain that they were the legitimate heirs of Muhammad, they hurried to get to Medina to participate in the meeting, as both feared some kind of coup d'etat. Upon arriving at Saqifa, where Ali, Muhammad's cousin, was also present, Abu Bakr addressed the crowd to warn about the possible election of a leader from outside Muhammad's clan. The crowd became heated at such an idea. Then Abu Bakr himself proposed two candidates, Omar and Abu Ubaidah, who were his companions, to rule together. He was told that among the Quraysh, who were the inhabitants of Mecca, and the Ansar, who were the inhabitants of Medina, they should choose a leader, respectively, and that both should rule together. But at this new suggestion, the public became even more enraged. To calm the waters, the candidate Umar took Abu Bakr's hand and swore loyalty to him in front of everyone. This example was followed by the other prominent leaders present there, as they believed that Abu Bakr was one of Muhammad's most loyal and strongest companions, and more suitable to succeed him. As a result, nearly all present accepted Abu Bakr. The result of Saqifa was clear. Muhammad's great friend was the one who should continue his work as the leader of Islam. However, some opposed, among them Ali and his supporters, who claimed that he, as the Prophet's cousin, should be his heir. It is unknown if Ali was proposed as a successor during the Saqifa, but the truth is that Abu Bakr was acclaimed by the majority. The new successor sought Ali's loyalty through his companion Umar, who went to speak with the Prophet's cousin to adhere him to his cause. However, the encounter likely led to an altercation that may have turned violent. However, later on, Ali was forced to accept his new political reality and accept Abu Bakr as the new leader of Islam, making peace with him. This conflict would mark the first step towards the division of the religion. The supporters of Abu Bakr, friend of Muhammad, would later become the Sunnis, while those who defend the hereditary right of Ali, Muhammad's cousin, would eventually become the Shiites or Shias. Ali's stance was considered extremely passive by some, as he did not claim his legitimate right through violence, while others considered it generous and very responsible. As he avoided even more internal conflicts, Abu Bakr became the first caliph of Islam. But despite his overwhelming political victory, his government lasted only 2 years and 3 months. For in the year 634 he fell seriously ill. Some even believe he was poisoned to die days later. His mandate was very well received by numerous Muslims, as he crushed the rebellion of several Arab tribes throughout the Arabian Peninsula. In the successful Rida Wars, he embarked on epic conquests against the Sassanid Empire in Mesopotamia and against the Byzantine Empire in Syria. And also, he promoted the written preservation of the Quran. Abu Bakr wrote down that his wish was for his successor to be Umar ibn al-Jattab, the former candidate who had acclaimed him more than 2 years ago. So in this way, Omar would become the second caliph of Islam. Umar ruled for 10 years, continued Abu Bakr's conquests, and continued the expansion of Islam under his rule. What is today's Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and part of Iran all came under Muslim control. In addition, he launched the conquest of the Mediterranean, laying the foundations of the Islamic Empire, which his successors would extend to Andalusia in present-day Spain. However, in the year 644, Umar was tragically murdered in the Medina Mosque during morning prayer. A slave named Piras Najabandi was the one who murdered him. Although the reasons are not clear, it is speculated that the slave did it in revenge for the bloody Muslim conquest of Persia. Ali, Muhammad's cousin and considered the heir to Islam for over a decade, maintained his leadership among his people. And when Umar was murdered, the Shiites believed that this was their moment. Ali thought that the time for his rule had finally come, but the chosen one was Uthman ibn Affan. The election of Uthman was somewhat controversial, as he belonged to the aristocratic family. Umayyad from Mecca, which was the rival city of Medina, the place of origin of Muhammad's Hashemi family. His election, moreover, meant the distancing of Muslim leadership from the Prophet's family. Ali objected to Uthman's election as the third caliph in Medina. This openly precipitated the split within Islam, which divided between the supporters of Ali and the followers of the new caliph and the Umayyad family of Mecca. Despite facing tough opposition and some internal rebellions, Uthman ruled for 12 years, continuing the Islamic expansion just like Umar Uthman. He was assassinated in 656 by some Egyptian rebels who stealthily entered his house and executed him. Ali, who allegedly tried to prevent Uthman's assassination, was ultimately hailed as the fourth caliph by the families of Medina. However, the assassination of Uthman and the arrival of Ali sparked a civil war within the Muslim community, known as the First Fitna. This first civil war within the Muslim community further deepened the differences between the Shiites and the Sunnis. In this way, Ali began his long-awaited caliphate under very complicated circumstances. Within the First Fitna, Aisha, Muhammad's youngest widow, rebelled against Ali, but was defeated in the Battle of Al-Jamal, also known as the Battle of the Camel. On the other hand, the Umayyads of Mecca, despite the protests, were seeking to consolidate their power in Syria, with leader Muawiyah at the forefront. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan was the governor of Syria and one of the most prominent leaders within the Umayyads. Ali sent the widow Aisha as a prisoner to Medina and executed her supporters. However, despite these measures, Ali was accused of being impractical, passive, and too attached to his pacifism for his actions. He was criticized for abandoning the search for Uthman's killers and not applying the law of retaliation, as Uthman was not a family member. Even some accused him of being an accomplice to the murder, in order to take the power that he had so desired since the death of the Prophet. The confrontation was now with the Umayyad Maguila, family of the last caliph before Ali, who became his main enemy. Ali, who was in Kufa, had no other choice but to start a battle against the Umayyads. This confrontation did not favor Ali, and the confrontation ended with an arbitration that made him resign his caliphate to wait for a new election during the arbitration. After the surrender of Ali, Muawiyah, the Umayyad who ruled Syria, emerged as the winner and became the new caliph of Islam, ending the so-called Orthodox caliphates, which were those of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, and initiating the so-called caliphates, or sharp as an eagle. Once again, the Shiite supporters of Ali felt defeated, deceived, and vilified. Ali retreated to the location of Kufa, where most of his followers were concentrated, many of whom were of Persian origin, who had adhered to Islam from the beginning of the Arab expansion. Persians who came from present-day Iran. There, his situation was not easy either, as he faced a tough and fanatical opposition, until a Muradite from the Harithi sect assassinated Ali in the year 661. The cousin of the Prophet Muhammad was buried on the outskirts of Kufa, present-day Iraq. But his supporters and heirs would continue to develop their own branch of Islam called Shi'ism, distinct from the Sunni tradition that would continue to form under the Caliphate of Muawiyah. The death of Ali closed the period of the Caliphate based in Medina, which spanned the first 4 decades of the history of Islam. With Ali, Shi'ism was born and divisions within Islamism, despite the fact that Ali's conflict was a hard blow for his followers. His death did not close the succession issue, as his supporters soon rebelled against Mughiyah, the caliph or Mellah of Damascus, and they acclaimed Ali's sons as the legitimate successors to the leadership of the Muslims, Al-Hasan and Al-Husayn. While Hassan didn't really figure in the history of Islam, Al-Husayn was the real protagonist of Shi'ism. Al-Husayn took charge of leading the armed Shiite descent against the Umayyads, but about 80 kilometers north of Kufa, in the town of Karbala, Al-Husayn met his death at the hands of the armies of the Damascus Caliphate, Damascus al-Husayn. Thus, he became the first martyr of Shiite Islam, and his death is mourned by the Shiites as a sign of repentance and atonement for having abandoned him in the onslaught of the Umayyads. Shi'ism managed to survive in small groups after the death of al-Husayn in the face of the consolidating hegemony of the Sunnis, who today still make up more than 80% of Muslims. First by the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus, then by the Abbasids in Baghdad, and finally in Cairo, until the seat of the Caliphate was moved to Istanbul. In the 16th century, such dispersion caused the Shia to lose homogeneity and split into many small groups. They split into advocates of open resistance, which was violent against Sunni power, and others preferred to live in hiding to protect themselves from attacks and stay alive. The veneration of the family formed by the Prophet. Today, more than 80% of Muslims in the world are Sunnis, while Shiites represent less than 15% of Muslims. The rest are made up of minority branches within Islam. While they all believe in and worship Allah and are faithful followers of His Prophet Muhammad, the divisions that arose centuries ago still remain. The Muslim religion has a rich history that we will continue to present, along with a special approach to the equally rich history that we are preparing on Christianity and Judaism. See you next time. Take care.